Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Bagpipe Report. My name is Blake Norton, and for the next 60 minutes, we're going to take you through the world of professional wrestling. First, we go to Seattle, Washington, where Brian Alvarez will bring us up to date on all the latest news. We'll review the last pay-per-view from WWE No Mercy this past Sunday night. Then Mo Chathra from Power Slam Magazine. He'll be right here in studio to tell you the latest on the Japanese wrestling scene and what you'll be seeing coming up on TWC. Finally, also in studio, we've got a big superstar, Colt Cabana. Ring of Honor superstar will be right here tonight.
What are you doing?
I'm just doing an intro to...
For what?
The Bagpipe Report. This is...
Oh, this is the show?
Yeah, this is the show.
This is the show?
Yeah.
Right here, Bagpipe Report?
Yeah, Bagpipe Report.
And I'm on camera.
You're on camera.
And you're on camera.
I'm on camera.
And there's people out there.
There's people out there.
They're watching me.
And they want to see you.
And they're watching you?
Well, not so much me.
They're watching me, because I'm Colt Cabana, and no longer is this the Bagpipe Report. This is good times, great memories, and we are here on the Wrestling Channel, and I am taking over. I am ready to rock and roll. This is now the Colt Cabana Show. You stay tuned for all your wrestling news. Hi-oh! Yes, I got a show. It's the bag. We're going to take that out, the Colt Cabana Report, and he's going to report, like, good news and some information and some stuff. You just wait and see. It's gonna be hello? Testing? This is Welcome to Good Times, Great Memories, right here on the Bagpipe Report. I am your host, your new leader, England's, Irishland's, everybody's new hero, Colt Cabana, on my own show. I'm excited. I've got news, I got gossip, I've got rumors, I've got everything. And it's about time that they get some charismatic, awesome, excellent, stupendous, super smicious, to host this show, and here I am, ready to rock and roll. Let me tell you something, it's gonna be great. Let's get right into the news. What do we got? There's Samoan wrestlers that wrestle in England, and they're big, and they wrestle matches, and they're wrestling like on the touring and stuff, and it's awesome. And this thing work? Is this legit? Hello? Hello? Yes? It's here for me? My mail order wife is here? Is she blonde? How big? How big are her eyes? Oh! Awesome, I'll be right back. Hold on, I'll be upstairs.
Okay then, welcome to the Bagpipe Report. My name is Blake Norton. We're going to bring another 60 minutes of news and information. Let's kick it right off with Gaia, who have announced, if you like very violent Japanese women beating each other up in the most gratuitous of fashion, you've enjoyed Gaia on the Wrestling Channel the last 6 months. Sadly, they're calling it quits. Their 10th anniversary show shall be their last. It'll be taking place next year. For the time being, we're going to continue showing them right here on TWC, and we'll show you that final show. And we'll keep you updated on what happens from there. Also want to make a programming note to you. TWC is expanding and getting bigger. TWC Reload will be hitting your screens on October 25th. Right here, we're on channel 427. It's going to be on channel 428. What it's going to do is it's going to show you recent action from TWC, things you might have missed because we hit you with a lot of new programming, 3 or 4 hours a night. And let's face it, 3% of wrestling fans don't have that kind of time on their hands, do they? So you'll catch all the recent action from TWC, as well as classic CMLL. You'll be getting, it's not that old CMLL, but by popular demand, we're going to put more of it on your screens than ever before. So we'll have more information coming up in the next couple of weeks, but check it out. October 25th, we're launching TWC Reload, one channel up on 428. Okay, everybody, it is my pleasure to bring on our resident news guru. It is Brian Alvarez from Seattle, Washington. He is going to hit us with the latest news and happenings in professional wrestling, the editor of the Figure 4 weekly newsletter. Check it out on WrestlingObserver.com. Hey, Brian, how are you doing this week?
What's going on?
Now, let's kick things off with NWA TNA. They're leading up to their big first pay-per-view, and we're asking the question, there's a tournament going on. Who are you looking at right now to be headlining that pay-per-view on November 7th with Jeff Jarrett?
Well, I would have said Jeff Hardy last week.
Yeah.
But, he no-showed Impact, so it's probably not the best thing to do if you want to headline a major pay-per-view for a wrestling company. So I think if it's not him, it'll probably be Monty Brown, from watching what they're doing with the TV. Raven, he came back, and I think like Impact this past week made it pretty clear it was going to be Monty Brown versus Raven, which would mean Jeff Hardy would get the title shot. But now I don't know what they're going to do, so we'll see.
What is the situation with Raven? Because, I mean, we talk about in this business how leopards may or may not change their spots. And, I mean, for instance, you go back to an example like Shawn Michaels, where everybody was like, he's out of wrestling, he's never going to come back. And he's come back and become a very, very consistent star again, and as good a wrestler, many say, as he ever was. Jeff Hardy now, you got a guy who has been controversial the last couple of years. We don't know if he wants to stick around or not. And when he came to NWA TNA, everybody was asking, is he going to commit to it? He was on a good run there for a couple of months. Everybody was quite excited about it, and suddenly he no-shows Impact. What is your read on the situation?
Well, Jeff Hardy is Jeff Hardy, and I really can't find any comparisons between him and Shawn Michaels. The Shawn Michaels thing, there's a lot of guys in wrestling that supposedly find God, and I don't think at least half of them actually found him. I think it's a wrestling type deal.
Right.
But I actually believe that Shawn Michaels is sincere, and he doesn't have even in the same universe the kind of heat that he had back in the day. So he's changed.
Yeah.
Jeff Hardy has not found God, and he's not changed.
But for a while, I mean, the impression the last couple of months I got, and the impression I got, and from interviews and things he'd said, and the way I'd heard of him conducting himself, made me believe that he really wants to be back in the game. And now completely no-showing the Impact tapings seems to completely put that right on its head.
Well, when he came back, I think that it was fun. Like, he's obviously a wrestling fan. He's been a wrestling fan forever. And he quit WWE or whatever happened there for various reasons. And, the schedule in TNA and everything is so much easier and more laid back than WWE. But I think when he came back, he had fun, and he wanted to keep doing it, so he was on his best behavior. But, after a while, when you're on your best behavior and it's not your true nature to act like this, you get a little, I don't know if lazy is the right word, but you just start...
Complacent.
Yeah, complacent, and that's what happened with him. And I actually don't know why he missed the show. I don't know yet, so we'll see.
We'll have to see. Yeah, that's definitely a situation I'm sure we'll hear more about in the upcoming days and see what the real situation is on it, because you never do know about these things until usually a couple of weeks later when the full truth comes out. Moving back to Jeff Jarrett for a second, there's been a lot of, I don't want to say, it's not exactly heat, but a lot of people who watch this industry, like you and I, have said for a long time now that Jeff Jarrett really isn't the kind of guy that you'd pick to be the face of a new company, of a new style of wrestling, and that it would be in the best interest in the company if he wasn't in that kind of Hulk Hogan position, if he was a top challenger, but if he wasn't that Hulk Hogan kind of position. Do you think they're going to swap the title at the first pay-per-view and create a new star, or do you think they're going to continue on this road with Jarrett as a top guy?
I think it all depends on, what Jeff Hardy's status is and if he's the one that ends up getting the shot. Because if he's inconsistent and they have to give him the title shot at the pay-per-view,
he'll
I
never
don't think
go
they
over,
put the belt on him, But the thing with Jarrett is, like, it's one of those things that everybody in the business knows, seemingly, except Jeff Jarrett. And the other problem with TNA is if you don't have Jeff Jarrett on top, who do you have?
Yeah.
Like, do you put the belt on Monty Brown? Do you put the belt on AJ? Who do you put it on? I mean, it's like Jeff Jarrett really is right now the most recognizable face, except maybe, Raven or somebody of that nature. But, even if you put the belt on Raven, it's a new guy. but it's also a guy, in Jared's age range that, it is just a really tough situation.
My pick would be Christopher Daniels, because not only is he seen as a veteran, but he hasn't been, he's about 34, and he hasn't been really exposed yet, while at the same time he has been very recognizable from the past couple of years. I'm curious, do you think they might give him a bigger push now that he seems to be...
The thing with Chris Daniels is he's not recognizable enough to the casual audience.
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem is that you made the point just there that if they go with someone that's too recognizable, it's almost like you're going backwards. And of course, like Raven's in that 40 age bracket, and it almost seems to me like they have to create a new star, because otherwise it's very hard for someone to not, like if Jeff Hardy, for argument's sakes, won the title and became their top guy, it'd be like, oh, the TNA, that's a promotion that's headlined by that former WWF tag team guy,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's better that you have your belt on somebody that the casual fan is going to recognize, but at the same time, it's like, when it's a guy that everybody can recognize as a guy that they're not going to care about, you've got a problem.
Right.
But at the same time, if it's a guy that they don't even recognize, you also have a problem. So they're totally like in a, like a no-win situation where there's really nobody to put the belt on.
There's no one perfect character.
Yeah. So.
Moving right along here, Billy Gunn is off the road. What's the situation with Billy right now? The last time I remember seeing him do anything substantial was that match with Kenzo Suzuki a few months ago on pay-per-view.
He actually had personal issues. He passed out at an airport, and so he said, well, time to go home.
We're very sorry to hear that. Does it look like this could be a long-term issue with Billy, or do you expect to see him back anytime in the near future?
Well, it really all depends on him, so, I don't know. But
well, certainly our best to Billy Gunn, who is now, he's been with WWE for 11 years. He's one of their longest-running guys on staff. So
I think he may actually be in his 40s by now.
I'm pretty sure his birthday was like the end of last year, his 40th birthday. So I think he's 41 later on.
He's a lot older than he looks.
Yeah. He's just starting to show it, though. He's just starting to, because, I mean, for a lot of years there, you wouldn't really guess he was 37, 38, 39. He looks pretty good. So, and again, it's a tough time for wrestlers because, I mean, Billy's got that kind of young image to him, and it's hard to evolve that character. Shawn Michaels is having the same problem, so.
Yeah.
So, okay, best of luck to Billy. We move right along here. I keep getting these questions. Steve Austin and Hulk Hogan's relationship with WWE. Do you think they'll, the kind of guys like this, they'll do something at some point or another. Do you think we'll see him this side of WrestleMania, though?
This side? Maybe a month or two. I think Austin will definitely come back starting in, early 2005. I don't know about Hogan, because the Hogan thing is really weird because for a while, they hated him, the McMahon family, and most of them still do. But Hogan, or Vince, always freaks out when ratings go down, and of course he called Hogan against a lot of people's wishes. So, and he has the final say on everything.
Right.
So if he wants him back, he'll be back. But, there's I think, a better chance of seeing Austin back soon than Hogan, but anything can happen. So.
Finally, on WWE news, Kane. I just read this post today. It's the Honky Tonk Man is reporting that Kane might be leaving WWE because of contractual conflicts, because he's not being offered as much money as he wants. Is there anything to this?
I think that a story of that magnitude
coming from the Honky Tonk Man's website
everywhere by now.
Yeah.
Aside from the Honky Tonk Man's website, and I've heard nothing about it except for that. So, I would be shocked.
If it's true, you and Dave better watch out, man.
That's right.
HonkyTonkMan.com. Go in head-to-head with WrestlingObserver.com.
That's right.
Okay, now we're going to jump into our pay-per-view review. No Mercy was this past Sunday night from WWE. It was a SmackDown pay-per-view. For my money, the main event, which has gotten it's gotten a very diverse reaction. I didn't think it was that good. I think I have to come out here and say JBL has done a hell of a job becoming a singles main event star as opposed to being a tag team mid-card wrestler. I never imagined that he would have that much credibility in my eyes 5 months down the road, but I have to say I think the guy's far more talented than I gave him credit for. I didn't think it was a great main event. I thought overall it was quite a good show, and the way I'd sum it up is that I enjoyed it. I wouldn't have thought it's $30 necessarily well spent. And I'm going to go back to what you said last week, Brian, in that the show finished and you kind of thought, well, what was the point in that a bit? Unless you like seeing Heidenreich kill The Undertaker for the third time this year.
Yeah, I had a different opinion of the show.
Shoot.
I thought it was just like the epitome of an average show.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see people enjoying it because I had like the lowest expectations possible going in.
It helps. It really does help.
Yeah, and it way surpassed my low expectations.
And the crowd was pretty hot too from the top.
Yeah,
so.
the crowd helped, but
Yeah.
I mean, just as far as like, all the matches top to bottom, it was just average.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when Big Show and Kurt Angle shocks you as being surprisingly good, it should tell you something about the quality of the entire show in general. And I like Kidman and London. I thought that was pretty good.
I thought it was very good. Yeah.
And aside from that, it was just like, well, it's a bunch of longer SmackDown, top of the hour,
Matches.
semi-main event.
That's the
matches.
thing is, I mean, there's a period in 2002 where SmackDown on a weekly basis was putting out shows that were so much better than this pay-per-view. You couldn't even measure the difference between the two, But overall, given this year of pay-per-views, I have to say I didn't think it was bad. Something I really dug actually is both the Kidman London match and the Kurt Angle Big Show match. They seem to have more of an emphasis on story than they did have on spots. I was impressed by Kidman as a heel because a lot of more cruiserweight style heels threw out tons of spots, and I thought Kidman was a bit old school, which I really liked, and I thought the nuances in the match were really good. First off, I'm going to ask you, Undertaker versus Heidenreich. Are we leading into a big program here?
Well, sadly, yes.
Oh man.
I don't know. It may last one pay-per-view if I know Undertaker. He's going to work with this guy on the road, and he's going to be appalled, and he's going to call for the end of it.
Right. John Cena versus Booker T, I thought was disappointing. John Cena, I thought they had a match on SmackDown a few weeks ago, and I suppose this is why, which I thought was very good. I really did. Cena is he going to take off and shoot the rest of that film, The Marine? Help me out here. Is he going to take the
He's
belt
actually
with him?
been filming.
Yeah.
And he flew back for the show, and then he's going to fly back, so I have no earthly idea why they put the belt on
Is
him.
he staying for the tapings? Might he do an injury thing, or...?
He could, but if you're going to do that, why do you have
Put
the belt on?
him. Yeah. Well, I
So,
suppose he's
that
kind of
one
at a point where...
confused me.
I mean, still always. I mean, he's one of SmackDown's top baby faces, and while he's not right in exactly the right position. I mean, I don't think losing to Booker T, who keeps talking about retirement on a pay-per-view, is a good idea, even if he's going to lose the title again in a couple of days in an angle. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to keep a little bit of heat on him or something like that.
The thing with Cena is, I'm almost starting to think that he's in just the right spot.
Really?
Because he's lost so much in terms of, I don't know if it's the babyface turn, but
Momentum, Raw.
it's just something about he never gets any better in the ring.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, you've got to be at least passable in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I guess passable's a bad word because he's passable, but
Yeah,
you've got to be better than he is.
Mm-hmm.
And with the number of guys that he's worked with and everything like that, he should be getting better, and he's not.
Mm-hmm.
And his promos have gotten, it's the same thing every week. And the one he cut where he was impersonating Rock and Austin and everything like that was just made him come off like a geek.
Right.
And I think they need to turn him heel or something to give him an edge, because right now he's just.
Are you thinking that they're closing the door on him as a main eventer, at least for the time being, then, and just sort of?
I think they are. I think that's pretty clear, but things change.
Mm-hmm. And finally, I want to ask you about Eddie Guerrero versus Luther Reigns. A lot of people are going to this saying, right, Luther can talk, he's got the look. This is going to be the test. He has to have a good match with Eddie Guerrero, a great wrestler. Do you think he had a good enough match to say, yes, you can use me as a serious guy at the top of the card, or do you think the match was lacking?
The match was lacking,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't even know if I can completely blame Luther, because it looked like one of those matches where Eddie was going in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't really know what to say. All I know is that I watched some Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero matches for free on SmackDown, and then I had to pay to see him have a bad match with Luther Reigns, and that was upsetting.
Yeah. Booking is a strange, strange thing, Brian. That has been your No Mercy review for this week. Brian will be joining. Actually,
A very average review for a very average show.
a very average review for a free. That's right. As the shows lower their standards, so do we. We just feel we don't have to work as hard. And next week, we're going to be broadcasting from over your side. I'm heading over to Seattle for a week. And so this time next week, you're going to be hearing all the latest news and scoops from me and Brian over in Seattle. So I will see you soon. You have a great week, and we will talk again this time next week on the Bagpipe Report.
Thanks a lot, dude.
Okay, welcome back to the Bagpipe Report. Now we have our guest, our friend, our resident Japanese guru in studio. Mo Chatra is here from Power Slam Magazine in the UK to bring us up to date on the latest from the land of the rising sun. Hey, Mo, how are you?
You all right, mate?
Now, the first thing I want to ask you this week is people who watch Japanese wrestling here in TWC. It's been so hard to get good Japanese wrestling in this part of the world for so long. And it's the same in the US, same everywhere, outside Japan. I've heard two different distinct frames of mind. One is, God, this stuff is the greatest I've ever seen. I want to see more of it, more of it, more of it. And the other is, I don't get it. And of course, the Japanese wrestling style is different to the North American wrestling style and the English styles that we've seen. What can you do to bridge the gap? What should people be looking for? And how is it that they try to express themselves with Japanese wrestling?
Right. I think one of the biggest stumbling blocks that a lot of new viewers have with the Japanese wrestling is the commentary. They hear foreign voices talking all kinds of gobbledygook to them, and that's an immediate turn off for a lot of people. Now, one of the big things that people need to do is to just kind of ignore it in a way, similar to how people go to live wrestling events. You've got no commentary there for the wrestling that you're seeing in the ring, but you can still get into the matches. And so in the same way, fans who watch Japanese wrestling should do the same thing. They should perhaps switch off, ignore the commentary and just focus purely on what's going on screen. And the commentary, in some ways, you get used to over time once you give it the time. And once you get used to it, it's actually pretty good because the enthusiasm of the Japanese commentators is really, really good. And that's something you can appreciate. So even though you don't understand what they're saying, the sheer enthusiasm and energy that they put into it is just really good. And another thing is the matches themselves. They generally tend to be slower, especially with New Japan and Noah. And that's another thing whereby I like to use a movie analogy. I mean, you've got some movies out there that are really action-packed and fast and furious. And then you've got other movies which are more kind of slow burners that take their time, but the stories have a bit more depth and the characters put a bit more into it, so you learn more about them. And the Japanese matches, especially some of the big 20, 30-minute matches, are just like that. They have a slow build, the story develops and develops, and at the end it's just a crescendo of great moves, great action, emotion, excitement. The fans are really getting excited and into it. It's just awesome to watch. So fans just have to be patient and give it time and just watch it, give it a few weeks, and then see if you try to get into it. If you don't, then fine. But if you do, then that's a great thing. It's a very rewarding experience to watch Japanese wrestling. I've been watching it for many years now. I started off watching WWF, WCW back in the late 80s.
And anybody who watched WWF and WCW should be used to tuning out the commentators now and then.
Oh, definitely. I mean, who wants to listen to Michael Cole? I mean, forget that.
I didn't say that. Mo Chatra did. Okay, now moving right along, Josh Barnett, wrestling star in New Japan Professional Wrestling. He's going to be coming back to the shoot fighting game. Pride, people who've seen UFC, I suppose pro boxing, things like this, legitimate fighting. He's going to be coming back fighting in Pride shoot style, and he's going to be taking on Mirko Crow Cup.
That's right.
What can we expect from this match, and what's the deal with Josh leaving New Japan for Pride?
Right, now that's a pretty big deal in Japan. Josh Barnett was a UFC World Heavyweight Champion. He was one of the top heavyweight fighters in MMA, but then he failed a steroids test, and that actually forced him out of mixed martial arts competition for a while. And then eventually he signed up with New Japan. And so since January 2003, he's been with that company and he's become very successful there, very good wrestler in his own right. And he's still been doing a bit of MMA for New Japan because there is a bit of a crossover appeal between pro wrestling and MMA in New Japan. And so he's going to be representing New Japan on October 31st at the 28th Pride Show against one of the most devastating and most destructive fighters I've ever seen, Mirko Crow Cup. He is just unbelievable. The guy's a kickboxing specialist. He can knock people out silly ways, just with his fists, and his shin kicks are just unbelievable. And he's going to really have his work cut out for him. And it's a huge fight. These are two big stars in Japan. And what it means is if Josh Barnett becomes successful and if he wins the fight, then I think his days in New Japan could be numbered and he'll probably focus his attentions full time on Pride. And talking of Pride, we're in negotiations with the company to perhaps bring some of their programming to TWC. So hopefully that will be something that will be very good for Wrestling Channel viewers. It's something different to our normal programming, but it's so exciting and it's hugely popular in Japan, almost as popular as Premiership football is in the UK and Ireland. So if we bring that here to TWC, it's just going to be awesome.
That sounds great. And of course, there's less of a gap in Japan between shoot fighting and professional wrestling. In fact, there's a lot of matches where people have actually had to debate whether they're shoot or whether they're actually written match. Whereas in North America, of course, we're used to sort of cartoon characters in professional wrestling.
That's right.
Now, in shoot fighting, like Pride, like UFC, steroid testing.
Yes.
I'm talking about Josh Barnett right there. In professional wrestling, it pretty much doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And the same as pretty much pro baseball, basketball, most sports, it seems to not really exist. Do they take it more seriously in shoot fighting?
It's not massively serious as yet as an issue. I think it does go on like it does in pro wrestling, obviously.
Right.
But certainly UFC, which is pretty heavily regulated through the Nevada State Athletic Commission, they do exercise random drug testing.
Right.
And one of their previous heavyweight champions, Tim Sylvia, he was caught with steroids in his body, and he was stripped of the title. So it is a serious issue, and fighters do get randomly tested, so it is becoming more of an issue. Obviously in wrestling, it's just one of those accepted things where almost everyone does it who's a big star.
Yeah.
And but we know in legitimate sports, it can create an advantage. With pro wrestling, it's not a real sport, so
it's
not
different
a big
circumstances.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, the month of October is going to be very big, not only for New Japan, but also Noah. Some big shows coming up over there. What's going down?
Well, tomorrow in Japan, there's a couple of big shows coming up. Firstly, New Japan have got BS Asahi taping, which is a show we'll be showing here on the Wrestling Channel in a couple of months. And it's going to be main evented by a big title match where Kensuke Sasaki is going to challenge for the IWGP title, which is held by the winner of a match between Kazuyuki Fujita and another chap called Katsuyori Shibata. And that match is coming up in 2 or 3 weeks here on the Wrestling Channel, and the winner of that will take on Kensuke Sasaki, and that's going to be an explosive and very hard-hitting match. Later in October for Pro Wrestling Noah, and by the way, Doug Williams is on tour for Noah as we speak. They're going to be having a big world title showdown between Kenta Kobashi and Akitoshi Saito. Saito is a very tough, short and stocky guy who's going to pose a lot of problems for Kobashi. Kobashi's title reign has gone on for over 18 months now. Somebody's got to take the title off him, and it could be Saito. So there's a couple of big shows coming up in Japan, and we'll be bringing them on the Wrestling Channel in a couple of months.
Well, that sounds great. Well, we're right here on TWC the next month or two. What can we expect to see on our screens? Right.
Well, we're in the midst of showing matches from the Tokyo Dome from Noah's biggest event that took place on July 10th.
Right.
And we've got some awesome matches that have just been shown the last couple of weeks and next couple of weeks as well. And then we're going to follow that by showing some big matches from August and September from Noah. And that's something that's worth looking forward to. We've been showing some excellent matches past few weeks, and it's been drawing some rave reviews on the Wrestling Channel forums as well. So that's been very good. On the Noah side, New Japan side of things, we've got the G1 Climax tournament, which I've been talking about the last couple of times I've been on here. That's going to start next month, and that's going to be a tremendous tournament for Wrestling Channel viewers to watch. So many great matches, so many exciting rivalries, and it's all going to come to a head. It's a tremendous tournament to watch. And on the guys' side of things, one of the big matches we've got coming up on there is a singles contest between Manami Toyota and Ayako Hamada. Manami Toyota, probably, in my opinion, the greatest female wrestler of all time, and Hamada is the Gaia AAAW World Singles Champion, so that's sure to be an excellent match as well. So there's lots of great action that Wrestling Channel viewers can look forward to over the coming weeks.
Well, great stuff. Mo Chafra, thank you very much for the update. Make sure you check them out every month in Power Slam Magazine, and we will see you back here very, very soon.
Cheers, Blake.
Take care.
Thanks.
This Sunday at 8 p.m. we return to the realm of the Supercard right here on TWC, and it's going to be a good one. A lot of fans have written in, said we love the Ring of Honor Supercards, 3 hours of pure wrestling goodness, and that's what we're going to serve up for you again this weekend. Sunday night, 8 p.m., Ring of Honor All-Star Extravaganza. We got several top matches, Jay Briscoe versus Xavier, a tag team match with Steve Corino teaming up with the insane Low Ki, one of the most dangerous men in the face of the planet. They're going to take on Tanaka and Otani. Then what we have is we have a tournament for the number one contender slot. We got some of the top wrestlers in the United States and in fact the world today. Paul London, who's making incredible waves in the WWE right now. American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. CM Punk, AJ Styles, who's on road to become perhaps the greatest X Division champion of all time. The high-flying Amazing Red, Michael Shane, also of TNA fame. This is All-Star Extravaganza from Ring of Honor this Sunday, 8 p.m. Make sure you check it out right here on TWC. Okay, welcome back. Joining us now is one of the most talented men doing the rounds in the United States of America right now. You'll see him in Ring of Honor, many other top promotions over there. He's currently over on this side of the water. 2 months he's traveling around Britain, and yes, we're talking about you. He's traveling around England, Britain, All-Star Wrestling, FWA, pretty much all around this whole area. It's a pleasure to welcome Colt Cabana. Word.
Thanks. Hi.
Hey, how you doing, Colt?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. How long you been in the neighborhood?
Well, I stopped by about a month ago, and I got another month to go, so that's a 2-month span.
How have you been finding it?
I've had a great time. People are nice. The cars are weird. Everyone likes tea and coffee.
They sure do.
Yes.
I always have my mug of tea right here on
Really?
the show. It's important to have your tea
I guess.
on the show. If this is America, it'd be coffee. If we're shooting this in New York, but we're shooting this in England and Ireland.
Okay.
England now. What's different between working in England and the U.S., North America?
Well, here at the grocery stores, the people sit down in the chairs, like when the cash register people, and then when they check you out and they sit down, and it's probably the greatest thing ever to be working over here in England because you don't have to stand all day, and you just sit down and they give you a chair. It's probably good for your back. Don't have to get calluses or athlete's foot, so that's probably one of the big pluses for working over in England.
I know. I have heard rumors they take like $1 out of their paycheck every hour for that.
For the chair.
That's what I've heard. I'm not sure if it's true.
Well, it could be worth it out of pure laziness of the workers. I would do it. I'd pay $1 or maybe £1 or $2.
Well, maybe you can look into that.
Well, I will. I plan on bringing that back to America because I think it's ingenious that people sit down when, why haven't Americans thought of that?
Well, maybe you could patent it. You could anybody who sits when they're serving someone in a department store or a grocery store, they'd have to pay you $1 an hour.
I'll take it.
There we go. Colt the Millionaire Cabana.
You know what? The clapper was. It takes one idea. Just takes one idea.
How about in the ring? What's the difference there?
Oh, wrestling.
Yeah. When you're graps, as we call it.
So, man, there's a lot of difference. It depends because England has. It's very weird how I picked it up. England has kind of been influenced by American wrestling, and now when you go over to the indie style, a lot of it has been influenced by Britain wrestling.
Yes.
So it's kind of always the grass is greener on the other side kind of thing. So for some of the more entertaining shows, I find a lot of the American wrestling the same, so it's not hard for myself. But also over here in England, a lot of the veterans and the old British way, the old World of Sport wrestling. I've noticed the brush up and how it works and the shell eyes. That it's interesting and I love it. And so. The technical aspect of it also, of how the British wrestling works is very different from the American, where there's a lot of different exchange, a lot of more kind of amateur, kind of like a high-speed amateur.
Right.
That's what it seems like, as opposed to American style, where it's more telling a story with your mouth as opposed to with your body and with your hands.
Right. Have you found it difficult to adapt to the style?
Well, I don't really, coming over as an American, I don't see it that I should be adapting. Don't take it that way. That
I hope none of your opponents are listening to this, because you're gonna get a smack.
Yeah, exactly. But as an American feature, I think they want to see
the style
the American.
that you bring.
Yes.
Right.
But at the same time, I also try to bring in a little of the British stuff that I've taken from here. So
Right.
I've tried to put that. I'm intertwining it slowly but surely. I've now become a British wrestler.
Do you think you might bring some of the things you've learned here back and use them in the States?
Of course, and that's one of the most important reasons why I'm over here is to learn the British way of wrestling and the etiquette and the style and the culture and bring it back to America for something different, you know, spice it up a little. I think it's very important.
Now, in America, when British wrestlers go over there, there's very few that are known. Doug Williams, Nigel McGuinness are making waves in Ring of Honor. Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch have had some great matches, but by and large, it's very difficult. Whereas, from what I've seen, coming back the other direction, it's different. Do people know who you are from your exposure in the U.S.? When you come out of the curtain, people go, "Oh, that's Colt Cabana. I saw him."
I find it. That there are people who know who I am, and especially like at the FWA shows, where they're very smart to the internet and just different ways of getting their news and stuff, as opposed to just going to the local town every week.
Right.
You know, so I find it that I am getting known, and it's weird because, you know, I'm an American. I've traveled the States, and you know, I came over here for 4 days last year, but that's about it. But you know, people do know, and especially with the wrestling channel now showing Ring of Honor.
Right.
And stuff like that, it makes for even better exposure. So there are people who know who I am. Yeah.
Now, since you've come over to England, I know you've had a very hectic schedule. Of course, in the States, indie dates are harder to come by. The territories don't really exist anymore.
Yes.
Each promotion has maybe a show or two a month, and it's all over instead of one promotion touring all the time.
Right.
Have you experienced this heavy schedule in the U.S. as you've had over here the last
Heavy
month?
what?
Heavy schedule.
Schedule.
Schedule. Schedule, sir.
A schedule.
Schedule.
Schedule, yes. Yeah, it's interesting.
You're in our part of the territory now. You
I'm
sneak
sorry.
our way.
I will adapt, and I will eat your oregano and your tomatoes. Yes.
Okay, but that has to be after 8 p.m.
Oh, schedule.
Schedule.
Schedule. So, yeah, it's interesting. Back home, you wrestle 2-3 times a week on the weekends. During the week, I'm in Chicago, training, hanging out, you know, studying, watching tapes, doing whatever. Here, I'm on the road all week, especially with All-Star Wrestling. Brian Dixon's All-Star Wrestling is kind of what I'm doing during the weekdays, and we travel from town to town, East Coast to West Coast, to down south to up north, and it's just you're in a car and you're traveling and you're getting to see the world, but at the same time you're not at home, you know, you're not. So it's different, and it is back, a callback to the territories and just going from town to town, and it's something that I'm glad that I've had to experience, because you know, back home, especially a guy like Tracy Smothers, who's still wrestling now, who wrestled in the territories, was always saying, you know, Colt, I wish there was territories again. You know, all you guys would have jobs, everybody would be eating. You know, and it was so cool. You know, you go to town, and that's what he would say, and I knew, you know, from watching tapes and hearing, you know, shooting interviews or whatever, I knew that they existed, but you never really got to experience them. And that's
the feel, yeah.
And that's something that's kind of going on right now over here, and I'm appreciative of it. So,
well, you've worked with a lot of great stars. Of course, Tracy Smothers, people will know from runs in WWF all over the place. Also, Dusty Rhodes, you had an interaction with at Ring of Honor. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. First of all, how'd you find those two guys to work with? Because, of course, they're two of the greatest legends in modern wrestling.
Yeah, well, first of all, Ricky Steamboat's the biggest class act going in wrestling today. He would take that, just anyone who wanted to learn, he was willing to spread his information. And all the years that he's done stuff, he was willing to let learn. And now that, you know, the Second City Saints were kind of on his side, you know. Yeah. We kind of made a formation. It's even better because he's taken us, you know, within his grasp and willing to give us, you know, the knowledge that he's done for so many years. And so he's a class act, and it's just great to be around him. And Dusty was cool too. You know, I did an interview segment with him, and Dusty was always kind of, you know, like an inspiration in interviews. You know, like funky like a monkey, you know, baby. You know, just he was out there. He wasn't the, you know, I am pro wrestling, grrr. That wasn't him. That wasn't his shtick, and that's what got him over. That's why people loved him, because he was just the son of a plumber, you know?
Right.
So, and it was great to be a part of it. It was really something that when I stepped through the doors of training school, you know, 6 years ago and 7 years ago, you know, I wouldn't have dreamed that I would be able to do an interview with Dusty Rhodes, and just says a lot, you know?
Yeah. Okay, quick question. Do you think
Yes.
Ricky the Dragon is going to come back for one more match? Because there's been a lot of talk about that.
Well, there's a lot of talk, and I'm not Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. You know, I don't have his back, or that's his call. You just have to wait and see, I guess. I'm not sure.
Now, like you're saying, you started off 6 years ago. You've been all over the place. Someone sees your resume. You've been all over the place in the U.S., and now you're obviously also expanding your horizons internationally. Is that travel? Is that something that you want to do, or is it something that you need to do?
A little bit of both. When I first came into wrestling, there's guys there's local guys, and then there's guys who get all around. And I wanted to be the guy that got all around, and I wanted to be the guy who people would see. Wow, Colt Cabana was in Minnesota on Thursday. He was in St. Louis on Friday. He was in Ohio on Saturday. He was in Kalamazoo, Michigan on Sunday. And they're like, well, how's he doing? What's going on? Why is he so known all over? And that's how you get your name out. And that's how people know who you are from different places and different territories in indie wrestling in the United States, if that's what we have. So I love the travel. That's part of being a wrestler. You make your rounds, you go on the road, if you're lucky enough you get to go in different airports and even sleep in different airports and whatever. That's part of the wear and tear, and that's part of the wrestling business, and that's why I love it.
The scene in the States the last 10 years has become very difficult for someone up and coming, such as yourself in the last 6 years, because of course, as we talked about, the territories have faded away. Vince McMahon and WCW and ECW sort of started coming up, but then both WCW and ECW folded. So now it's like there's only 30, 40 good slots at all in the business, and there is so much talent. How difficult is it? Because it used to be indies are where you learn your craft. These days, indies are bursting with 5-star guys. How hard is it for a guy to break in?
It's not nearly impossible, but it's hard to break in. You got the WWE, and that's where all the jobs are. And then besides that, there aren't a lot of guys making livings for themselves. Yeah. We're trying. I'm fortunate enough to make a living as a wrestler, and that's always been my dream, and I'm doing it. But after that, there's Ring of Honor, CZW, and just a bunch of these other, all these other promotions where people will take notice. But like you said, back then, 10 years ago, the bigger indie promotions, you could always kind of get a spot because people were always moving up or moving down to Memphis, blah blah blah. So now, you just have to fight to get a spot in one of the bigger promotions. And so it's really like an honor. It's an honor as a wrestler for myself to be wrestling in Ring of Honor, because I know that I've had to fight and claw and make my way to, the top promotions in the indie scene in the U.S. So.
And now it is time once again to delve into the realm of the Bagpipe Report Q&A. We're going to start off with a double header this week. First question's from Dan, the second is unsigned, so we'll call him Janine Garofalo. First question, can you please tell me when FWA Hot Wire 2004 will be shown on the Wrestling Channel? Well, all our FWA is very up to date. We're only about 6 weeks out. So I've been told, keep your eye on that weekly FWA show, and you should see Hot Wired very, very soon. Then we move right on to Janine's question, which is, will we be seeing more of the IWA Mid-South show like CZW Fake UTV, a weekly show, or just the Supercards? For now, IWA is going to be just the Supercards, but watch this spot because you never know when a new show might go into rotation. The following letter, again unsigned, we'll say comes from Master Lovelever. The Master would like to know, I'd love to know what has happened to some of the older wrestlers, such as the Big Boss Man, the Mountie, the Barbarian, Marty Jannetty, and Scott Hall. Well, as you probably heard last week, unfortunately, the Ray Trail, the Big Boss Man, passed away at a very young age, and we're very sorry to see him go. He's certainly one of those memorable stars in modern wrestling history and has had a great legacy in this business. The Mountie, the last I heard, Jacques Rougeau was up in Canada. He was still promoting wrestling, still up around the Montreal area, I believe. Stop me if I'm wrong there. But he's still been very much in the game. He's done a lot of teaching the last couple of years since he's been out of the limelight. He hasn't been a full-time wrestler for about the last 5 years, but he's still staying heavy and strong involved in the business. The Barbarian I've not heard from. I've heard about some different bookings around America, but I haven't heard anything much beyond that. So if you guys know anything, send us on in an email. Send us an email at info@thebagpipereport.com. If you find the Barbarian, let us know and we'll tell you next week. Then we move on to Marty Jannetty, who was quite recently born again. Jannetty himself has been taking bookings again as of late. I heard some talk about him going to Japan, and I know he's definitely working dates around the States right now, so keep your eye out for him. I think it's quite likely that we'll see him in this neck of the woods before too long. And finally, Scott Hall. The last time I heard Scott Hall wrestle was a couple of months ago for UPW in California. UPW, of course, known because they've brought up a lot of WWE stars, including John Cena. He's not wrestling full-time now, not even all that regularly, but there is some talk of him going into NWA TNA. So keep your eyes right here, and you never know, in a couple of months' time, we might see Scott Hall back in action right here on the Wrestling Channel. Andrew Willits from Birmingham writes, "Dear Blake, my friend just told me a rumor that you're leaving TBR to pursue your wrestling career. If this is true, I would like to wish you the best of luck on all your future plans. TBR is the best show on the Wrestling Channel, apart from the wrestling itself, and I don't know how they're going to cope without you. Good luck, and congratulations on your engagement." Thank you very much for that, Andrew. We got a lot of emails like that, both about the engagement and about the show, and on a personal note, I very much appreciate all of them. Yes, I was going to be leaving, but at this point that has changed. I'm staying on with TBR, I'm very happy to say. Yes, I am engaged, and I am getting married at the end of December. And it seems that my fiance is going to come over here as opposed to me going over there. So for the time being and for the foreseeable future, I shall remain a wrestling business and yours in wrestling. 200 pounds, ladies and gentlemen. That's a lot of yen, guys. You want to win 200 pounds worth of great wrestling merchandise from the top promotions in the world. This week is special. Not only do we have the 200 pounds of merchandise, but included in that is a Ring of Honor DVD signed by Colt Cabana himself. You want to win that? You want to win that great prize? Answer one very simple question. Who made up the team of LOD? Was it A, Hawk and Animal, B, Eagle and Mineral, or C, Raven and Cannibal? You can text your answer, Blake A, Blake B, or Blake C, depending on your pick, to 88066. Each text costs £1.50, and the closing date is midnight this coming Thursday. Okay, now let's check out some upcoming dates in the UK and Ireland. On Saturday, the 18th of October, the IWF hits Newcastle upon Tyne. On Tuesday, the 19th of October, NWA UK Hammerlock is in Kent. There's going to be a Battle of Champions, courtesy of World Association of Wrestling, on Saturday, the 16th of October in Suffolk. All-Star Wrestling takes place Tuesday, October 19th in Skegness. Then on Wednesday, October 20th, they're going to be in Gravesend. IWW has a 5-day tour of Ireland coming up. First, it's back-to-back dates, Friday the 22nd of October and Saturday the 23rd in County Down. On Sunday the 24th of October, they're going to have a matinee show in Kildare. That evening, they're going to be in Dublin. Finally, on Monday the 25th of October, they'll be in County Laois. And you've been hearing about it for weeks. The Frontier Wrestling Alliance presents British Uprising 3 at the Coventry Sky Dome on Saturday, November 13th. Okay, now let's check out some of the action coming up right here on TWC in the next 7 days. We'll kick it off with Ring of Honor High Impact TV. These two guys go all the way back to day one, two friends of ours. It's Colt Cabana versus CM Punk. Then it's Samoa Joe versus Low Ki. In TNA action this week, Sabu takes on Abyss. Then it's a phenomenal AJ Styles taking on Ron the Truth Killings for the World Heavyweight Championship. MLW Underground TV from Florida hits you with two of the greatest cruiserweights in professional wrestling. It's former ECW Tag Champion Tony Mamaluke taking on Sanjay Dutt. Then in a double ring cage match, we're going to see C.W. Anderson, Steve Corino, Terry Funk, Sabu, and many, many more. Make sure you check it out. It's going to be a hardcore battle to the death. Then we open the vault on the World of Sport. Ivan Pensacoff takes on Spencer Churchill, and Drew McDonald faces off one-on-one with Roy Scott. And don't forget, this coming Monday night, we've got a shoot interview. It's one of the all-time greats. We have a habit of doing that right here on TWC. It's Bam Bam Bigelow. Hear him talk about his amazing history in professional wrestling, from the main event of WrestleMania to WCW, WWF, ECW Heavyweight Champion, much, much more. That's about it for me this week. Make sure you check out the WrestlingChannel.tv. We got stores, we got newsletters, news, upcoming information, forums, a whole lot more. then check out the bagpipereport.com. You can check out this episode, exclusive interviews, and much, much more. You guys have a great week. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you this same time, same channel, the Wrestling Channel, right here, next Friday at 8 p.m. on the Bagpipe Report.